Welcome to another Lane Creations video, Log Analysis Made Easy, where we're prepping you for your job interview or just to help you to remember some of the settings of the .conf files that are of importance, the most common ones. I do not want to turn this into where we just read the manual. Anybody can go and read the manual. I'm just going to go through with things I've learned over time and the settings that I think are the most useful. And if there's other stanzas and stuff that you found that are useful, go ahead and put it down in the comments below. I'm up for a little interesting conversation there. Let me know the things that I've missed that have been value to you. I definitely don't want to say that just because I omitted it, it isn't important. It's just something I haven't used a ton. But web.conf, that's the one we're going to talk about today. And this is actually one of my favorites. As a system administrator and as a user, the settings in here, they're really simple, and man, do they make a difference just for usability. And it's crazy. There's not many in here, but there are 3 settings that I absolutely can't live without as a general rule on my systems. And so I'm going to just go through these real briefly and talk about some of them. And I'll talk about my favorites as they come up. This start web server, hands down. It doesn't seem like it's that important, but it really is. I don't want to get too much into talking about vulnerabilities and stuff like that, but the current version of Splunk as of this time has, I don't know if it's the current version, but the previous one that was just released a little bit ago has a web vulnerability in it. And one of the best ways of disabling that vulnerability, you can patch your system, but if a user is not granted the web interface, the Splunk user interface, it's not susceptible to it. And a good portion of the machines I have are indexers. I have often found that people will leave their web server interface up on indexes by default. Web server is enabled, but there is very little reason that a indexer needs a web UI. Unless you have a standalone system, users are not going to be logging into the indexer, at least I hope not. You're not going to be adding a ton of apps through that interface. You'd be using a management interface, things like that. I'm sure there's exceptions, but as a general rule, as your infrastructure grows larger and larger, indexers and their web interface are hardly interacted with. So turn it off. 1, you get back those resources because the web server doesn't eat up any resources, and 2, you limit the places that your footprint for malicious activity to your web interface. So I, as a big fan, as a system administrator, I like turning off the web server on systems that's not needed, particularly indexers. That no need for that. So that's one of them. The rest of these, like we've got here, which if you want to change the default port from being 8000 to something else, that's where it's done. You want to change the management host port so it's not 8089, go ahead and change it there. There are a bunch of app server ports and connection timeouts. And then a lot of these here certs, whether you require a priv key. Oh, so let's make sure we cover this. This is number 2 on my list. Enable Splunk Web SSL. As a general rule, it's not a good idea to run HTTP. You should run everything through HTTPS. And you can go in and manually turn them on, but I like to have my deployment server just push this out to everything. It's got a web interface, and I just do enable Splunk Web SSL equals true. And then all of my machines will be using SSL, even if it's not a trusted cert. I'd rather use a non-trusted cert than have it just open. That's my take. You choose what you want to do. But if you want to have trusted certs, here's where you go, where you put your path to your trusted cert, et cetera. And here are the different routes, the capabilities for that trusted cert and authentication. We come down, so there's a whole bunch of stuff to do with the way you log in with certs and all that. We'll move past that. SSL versions, curves, what kind of encryption you want to use. Then the next thing that comes out is this tools sessions. Funny enough, this last command I don't even see in actually explained, except in this little note, tool session timeout value. Maybe there's a different place that this is going. Splunk always changes, they change their stuff. This command right here is the next big one that I love. There's a default if you're inactive on your Splunk instance. I think it's 60 minutes or it might be 10 minutes. I don't remember what the default is. According to here, it says default 60, so that might be. Um, but I guess maybe the real concept is they want you to use the UI and activity timeout. I've always just typed tools.sessions.timeout equals, and then I set the timeout. And sometimes we have reasons to make it longer, and sometimes we have reasons to make it shorter. And it's really frustrating if in your environment, just the way things work, if you're constantly getting yourself locked out. And so the system resets and you have to go put your password in again. So this is my third, and it's my third command that I really love is just changing how often it logs you out based off inactivity. The rest of these things we'll briefly cover. Here's your cache kind of concepts. And a lot of these things are what do you want, custom headers, footers, how you want to work with JavaScript, some a lot of it's a lot of the way the displays are working, how much clustering you can do. Again, I'm not going to cover all this, but you can just look through them. Basically, if you need to change the way things are displayed, footers, headers, how the JavaScript is done, JavaScript troubleshooting, error logging, uh, any of that you do when you're working with JavaScript, that's all going to be here. Oh, for some reason I missed it. There's my tool session timeout. Yep, number of minutes of inactivity before the session is logged out. Default 60. Low values are not useful except for testing. Anyway, so um, that's my three favorite commands. But there's a lot of just stuff. You can just scroll through this, and this is a lot of. I don't change many of these settings, but if there was a reason, I could see particularly if you had a development box where you're specifically developing a lot of JavaScript and HTML and cascading style sheets, you might play around with some of these settings here. Anyway, but those are my three favorite. I'll put them right up here on the screen again. This is what my stanza looks like. I typically have an app with these stanzas for the web.conf. This is for things where users will interact with it. And if they're not interacting, and so it's just it's like an indexer, that goes away, and this becomes a 0. That's my setting for a indexer, and I push that out to my indexers. Web.conf, great file, has a lot of just make things run a lot nicer, smoother, things like that. Oh, here's the other one. I should do a video completely on this, how I forgot about this. Enable risky commands. Um, if you're new to Splunk 9, I think it's Splunk 9, they started not allowing collect commands and output lookup, things like that to run by default. You get this little error, this is an unsafe command, are you sure you want to run it? If you want to turn that off, this is your command for you, enable risky command. If you turn this to false, you can now do a lot of those commands and the users won't get prompted. There's some other ways of doing it. I think it deserves its own video, and so I will cover it more in detail, but this is where those enable risky, oh, I lost it, enable risky command check. That's how those are all set. And once again, so that's in your web.conf. Anyway, I hope this helps you move from being a lame analyst to a Splunk ninja. If you like this stuff, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'm asking from now on for people to join my membership. If you're not aware, that's where you can become a member of my channel for a monthly fee. It's not much. For 99 cents, you can be able to join and get all my video content a month in advance. If you become a full member, you can actually I have full hours and hours of training to be system administration trained, user training, things like that. It'll help you if you want to be certified or just be a better Splunk user. I have lots of that content. It helps me be able to grow the channel and get the things I need to be able to make this channel bigger and better. And so your support is truly appreciated. I really thank everyone for watching these videos and continue to support this channel, and I hope you keep coming back.